Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a lovely day. I am delighted to be back as a guest designer for Scrapping for Less. I have here their April Flavor of the Month card kit, and the theme is Spring Critters. I gotta say at the very beginning that this is a fabulous kit. I had a blast with this one. I love critter stamps, and so this one was right up my alley. I'm going to show you all that is included in this kit. This first sheet here lists all of the supplies that you'll receive when you get your kit. It's quite a lot, and you'll get 4 very beautifully coordinated collections. Let's start with the first one. This one is called Spring Bees, and it features a darling stamp set from Sunny Studio Stamps. Let me first pull out all of the ingredients from this first collection. You always get a white envelope and some beautiful sequins. These are from Scrapping for Less. Here's some cute little sticker beads and some yellow and white twine. Here is the darling stamp set, the 2 little bees, and a beautiful collection of pattern paper, double-sided, also from Scrapping for Less. This has a bit of a sheen to it. It's just gorgeous. The second collection is called Spring Birds. I love that these collections come in their own individual cellophane bag. This is another sequins mix from Scrapping for Less. You get a pink fresh stamp set in this collection. I just love all these cute little birds and flowers, and some fun stickers and ephemera to decorate your cards with. I used up almost all of the ephemera from this collection. And then these papers are from Gina K, and they're single-sided, and they have kind of a sheen to them as well. They're just beautiful. They're called Journey of the Heart. On to collection 3. This one is called Spring Frogs, and it features a stamp set from Scrapping for Less, and it's called Totally Terrific Stamp. I had a lot of fun playing with this one. I just love the little frog in this set. Comes with some pretty flowers to decorate your cards with, and some wooden decorations. A lot of them. I didn't get through half of the stuff from this card kit. I could make up so many more cards. It's just fun. This is another sequins mix from Scrapping for Less. The paper is also from Scrapping for Less. It's called Spring Fever, and it's double-sided. I really love the colors in this collection. These collections are nice because they give you a hint of what colors to use to color in your little images. Sometimes I struggle with choosing which colors to use on my cards. This just makes it very fun and easy for you. Collection number 4 is called Spring Ducks, and this is another stamp set from Scrapping for Less. Let me pull this out of the cellophane bag. And I think the papers in this collection, number 4, are my favorite. I love plaid papers. Here's another sequins mix from Scrapping for Less. Such beautiful colors. And you get some stickers and some cute tags. There's beautiful foiling on these tags. And let me show you a close-up of this darling stamp set. These ducks are just so cute. I really love the sentiments in this set too. It says, "You fit the bill and have a ducky day." Now a close-up. This piece right here is my very favorite. I need more of that. And they're all beautiful. It's shiny on one side and more of a matte on the other. And that's the last collection in the Double Dip Sundae. If you purchase the Banana Split card kit, you get an extra little packet of goodies. Let me show you what this includes. I used the items from this Banana Split baggie on almost every one of my cards. Comes with this glue. I just love this multimedia matte glue. It's very strong when you're gluing on sequins or anything on your cards. There's some beautiful washi tape. Let's pull that off and show you, and it has some foiling on the dots. You get a cute banner die with little detailed cutouts and another stamp set that includes more sentiments for your cards. And there's a sentiment that fits each collection. Gives you a lot of more options for your card crafting. So that's with the banana split. At the Scrapping for Less website, you can also download these card sketches. I used all 4 of those. And then let me show you all the gorgeous cardstock you receive, and you get this with the Double Dip Sundae. The first one is Apple Mint, and then Blue Lagoon. You get a piece of red velvet in the navy, Lemon Drop, and Passionate Pink. Then you also get 2 sheets of Nina Solar White, 110 pound. Those are great for card bases. So let's jump right into the card crafting. On card number 1, I'm using collection 1, and I've cut out a lot of the elements for this card already. I'm going to use a sketch that you see at the top left of the screen. I really like these card sketches because they lead me to create cards I wouldn't make on my own. Sorry my head gets in the way. I just want to make sure this sentiment is straight. And it says, "Stay beautiful." Emphasis on the B. And I'm stamping that onto a piece of the Lemon Drop cardstock. I also really enjoyed using the navy cardstock from this collection. I don't often use navy cardstock, and I don't know why, but I really enjoyed it this time. I'm going to stamp my little scene onto a piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock. And I'm just using some extreme black ink from MFT. This is my favorite ink, I think. Snugging that up into the corner of my mini Misty. And then I do ink these up a few times just to get a nice crisp impression. I think I got something on my paper there, so I'm just erasing that. And I just love these little bees. They're so cute. I'm going to color them in with a few colored pencils, just a very few. Doesn't take long at all. These are some polychromos colored pencils. To give the bees some roundness, I go in with a darker yellow. I'm putting in a few shadows just to give it a little dimension so it doesn't look so flat. And I do the same thing with the beehive. For the wings, I'm using a pretty soft green. Then I'm leaving a big wide highlight in the middle of this beehive. And I'm coming in with the darker colors. And then I decided it was just too white, so I pulled out a blue colored pencil, and I'm just putting a light blue sky behind them. And now I can adhere all of my pieces together. So I am following that card sketch at the top there. And everything's going to be adhered down flat onto the card. There's so many layers to this. I didn't want to add any foam squares or anything to it. And I cut out my little flags by hand. It was just easy to do. I didn't have a die that cut out the flags. And then I'm just placing them on the card to see if I need to make them a little bit smaller, which I do. And then I'm going to use some of the baker's twine, and I just put down my glue first. And then I can just add the twine right over it and let it dry. I'm using some Gina K glue to do this because I totally forgot I had a brand new bottle of multimedia matte glue. But I realized that later and start using it in my later cards. The Gina K glue, as well as the multimedia matte glue, both dry clear. You can really see the glue right now because it's wet. That will disappear as it dries. Now I can glue on my little flags. And that dries pretty fast. And then I can cut off the excess string. I decided to use one of the little bumblebee stickers on this little circle. And that finishes off card number 1. I did decorate the inside, and here's a peek at that. So much fun. Card number 2, I'm also using the first collection, the cute little bees again. I cut a heart out of this pattern paper. This is going to be a window for my little scene that I'm creating with the bees and the beehive again. I'm going to color them in again with more polychromos colored pencils. Instead of black, I'm going to use navy blue for his stripes. You can color right over this lemon drop cardstock with your pencils, and it shows up nice and bright. Adds a nice base color to the bees and the beehive. And I'm putting a little more navy blue on their wings. I really enjoy coloring on colored paper. I just think it makes the images pop, and it provides you with a background behind them. The sentiment says, just because, and I'm going to adhere this pattern paper flat down onto my little scene. I pull out my long scissors just to trim off the overhang of the pattern paper. And now I can adhere this to a white card base and attach my sentiment strip. I'm going to fishtail the ends. And this is a slicker piece of paper. It has the sheen to it, but it's stamped up just fine. And this time I'm going to put a little bit of dimension behind my sentiment with some foam tape. Just makes it pop a little bit more. I think that looks so cute. I'm going to pull out some sequins from this collection and adhere the yellow ones just around my bees, just to add a little bit of sparkle. And this time I remember to use my multimedia matte glue. I'm going to use the scraps of my papers on the inside of this card. So I used the little heart die cut and then another little piece of scrap paper at the bottom. And that finishes up card number 2. Here's another look at the inside. Just simple, but it adds a lot to your cards, I think. I'm using collection number 2 for card number 3. This is going to be the fastest card of the whole lot. I'm using this beautiful paper that has a scripty writing on it. And I'm adhering that flat down onto a white card base. I really liked the cream and the white of the paper together on this card. The sentiment, I'm using a piece of the ephemera that just says hello, and it has some pretty flowers. I'm using some foam squares to prop them up. Very simple and fast to do. And then I pull out a few of the sequins from this collection and add them to the front of my card for more sparkle. I'm going to use leftover scraps for the inside again. And then this cute little mug that says smile. I love ephemera pieces. They really help to make fast decorations for the insides of your cards. And this is one of my favorite cards, I think, from this collection. On card number 4, I'm using collection 2 again. I'm pulling out these pink fresh stamps. I really like the illustrative look of these stamps. They're just so pretty. I'm stamping these up with some Distress Oxide inks and some Simon Says Stamp ink, some Ranger ink, just a mishmash from my collection. I pulled out the colors that I had that would match this piece of pattern paper the best. I'm leaving a space between these two birds to stamp out my sentiment. And now I'm just going to have some inky fun stamping up these flowers. Sometime I'm going to create my own pattern paper using this little stamp set. It would just be gorgeous, I think. So I'm stamping out the greenery, and then at the top I'm going to stamp the little flowers. And I think it ends up matching the pattern paper pretty closely. And the flowers are just going to go up the side of this panel. These are such dainty little stamps. It is so pretty. Before I do any more flowers and leaves, I'm going to stamp out my sentiment, just so I can get the placement, so I can stamp flowers around it. And I'm using the stamp set from the Banana Split collection. And it says, "So glad you're in my flock." This will be a fun card to send out to a friend. Now I can place some little flower stamps around it. This is my very first Pink Fresh stamp set. I really like their distinctive style. Now that I'm done stamping out this panel, I'm going to put it all together. And I had to use this beautiful notes background paper, perfect for the little birds. And then another piece of the pattern paper. I'm connecting this so it will be 4 1/4 across the bottom of this. And then I'm using my paper trimmer just to trim off the overhang. And then I can add this to a white card base. I thought it needed a little something more. So I pull out my corner chomper just to soften the bottom edges of this card. I really like the look of that. The sequins from this collection I think are my favorite. I just love the blues and the greens. I'm going to scatter some across this panel. This adds a little bit more something something to this card. For the inside of the card, I'm using another ephemera piece. It says, "Thank you, dear friend," and another strip of the pattern paper. I glue that across the bottom, and then I'm just going to use my scissors to round the corners on these. I should have decorated the inside before I used the corner chomper on it, but this works just fine. And that's all I'm doing to this card. It's just charming, I think. And I have tons of pattern paper and sequins left over. Now on to collection 3, which is called Spring Frogs. So I'm stamping out my little frog, and then I'm going to stamp a mask for him, because I want him to appear as though he's sitting on the lily pad stamp that came in this set. I'm just going to cut out his legs because I don't need to mask his head. And this is just a sticky note, full adhesive back. And now I can just cover him up with this mask. And then I can position the lily pad underneath him. This stamp has a little lily pad and then some water around it, and then 2 cute little cattails on the other side of him. Stamping that out a couple of times. And then when I pull off the mask, it's just fun to see him sitting on this little lily pad. It's just fun. I love masking. The little dragonfly I'm going to stamp at the top of this panel. And then I can start in on my coloring. I'm using more polychromos pencils on this. And I'm using the colors that match the pattern paper I'm going to use behind this panel. So here's my little frog, and the pencils color right over the yellow, and it does give it a nice base. I'm adding a darker green for some shadows. And I'm coloring his little belly in orange, the same color as some of the dots on the pattern paper. Thought it just broke up the greenness of the frog a little bit. And a couple of different blues for the water. And then he has these cute little circled cheeks that I colored in with pink. My dragonfly is just going to be yellow and brown with blue wings. And now to assemble my card. I really love that dot pattern paper. And I am going to put a little bit of fun foam behind this panel to prop it up. The glue gives you a little bit of wiggle time to position it. It's perfectly centered. And I'm going to hold that down with my acrylic blocks. I cut out a banner die, and I'm adding my sentiment right over this that says, "You're totally terrific." This is just going to add a little more interest and cuteness to the card. And then, of course, I have to pull out the darling sequins and glue a few of those around the panel. There are some cute little flower sequins in this collection. And then I did decorate the inside very simply with just a strip of the dotted pattern paper. Card number 6 is the busiest card of my whole collection, and I'm using collection 3 again for this one. I already colored my little frog with some Copic markers, and he's a teal frog this time because I wanted again to match him to the pattern paper. I die cut some ovals, and at the top of this white one, I stamped out the sentiment. It says, "Hopping by with a spring hello." And then for this first little flower, I pulled off the bead that was in the center of it so I could sit my frog to kind of make it look like a lily pad. And then I'm going to adhere the other 3 flowers around him. And I know that this pattern paper is really busy, but cute, and the flowers add more busyness to it. But overall, I really liked how this card turned out. It's just happy and fun. And then, of course, I had to put more dragonflies around him, and I did 3 this time. And I'm just gluing them down flat around the edges of the ovals. I'm going to attach it to another white card base. I think I used white card bases for all of my cards this time. And I'm going to use some of the pretty sequins from this collection as well. The inside is going to be simple again. And I'm going to add a strip of the same pattern paper and cut off the excess. This collection included a sheet of cut-aparts, and I'm going to use the one that says "Hello Spring." And I'm just going to adhere that down on the inside of my card. And that's all for this card. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, that's enough, Jackie. A lot of little things went into the making of this card. The last collection is called Spring Ducks, and that's what I'm going to use on my last 2 cards. I'm stamping out the first little duck onto a piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock, which I die cut from a faux stitched rectangle die. I'm using the sentiment that says, "You fit the bill." I went ahead and colored him in with some Copic markers, and I'm going to use my favorite piece of pattern paper, these little dots. I'm following another sketch for this card. This sketch provided the dimensions for all of the pieces that go into the making of this card, but I didn't follow them very closely. But other than that, I am following the sketch pretty closely. I'm going to prop up my sentiment and my duck panel with some foam squares. These are some very inexpensive foam squares that I've had for ages, and I'm trying to use them up, and I just put them in one of the little drawers from the turnabout on my desk. It's just handy to have them there. And now I can assemble this card. It's going to be a landscape side fold card. And I'm going to adhere him down on an angle. I think that looks so cute. And I can put the sentiment up at the top. It needed a little something more, and so that's where the sequins come into play again. I have this little triangle dish, and it's the handiest little thing because I can pour my sequins into it, pick out the ones I want, and then I can easily pour it back into the little bag. I'm just going to use 3 of those around my sentiment. And here is a look at the inside of the card. Just another strip of paper. I think I used up every scrap of that piece of pattern paper for 2 of my cards. The next card, I'm going to stamp out this cute little duck sitting in an umbrella. And I'm going to stamp him onto this oval die cut. This extreme black ink is a hybrid ink, so it's great for using your Copic markers on. I'm going to color him in again using the same colors as the pattern paper I'm going to use. So I'm coloring him in with a yellow and an orange, and I didn't really have a Copic marker in between these 2 colors to blend him out. So I'm using the lighter marker just to touch the tip of the darker marker, and this just helps get a smoother blend or transition between your colors. And then I'm using some reds to color in the umbrella, and it turns out to be a little bit darker than the reds in this plaid pattern paper that I'm using. But the pattern papers from this collection are also charming. You just can't go wrong in whichever one you choose. I think I got a bit heavy-handed with the reds, and I was just trying to blend them out smoothly. I'm using 2 green Copic markers to color in his little hat. And then I'm going to use another piece of masking paper, and I'm cutting out some waves. I wanted it to look as though he's floating in some water, and so I'm going to protect the top half of this image with the masking paper, or I should just say sticky note. And then I'm using some Distress Oxides. I'm going right over the Copic coloring of the umbrella. And these are not the life-changing brushes. These are just makeup brushes. Putting a little bit of darker blue at the bottom. But I really like how they work. I think they cost me $8. Then I can peel off the paper, and it looks like he's floating in a little pond. I'm using one of the smaller ones here, and they're just great. You just wipe them off when you want to change colors. I cut this piece of pattern paper to just a little bit smaller than a standard A2 size. I wanted some of the white of the card base peeking through. I'm using another card sketch for this one. I already heat embossed my sentiment that says "Have a ducky day" with some white embossing powder. I'm using some foam tape behind this image. And then for the little dots from the sketch, I'm just using 3 of the sequins that came in this collection. And then stickers are so fun and fast to use on the inside of your cards. I'm just going to put a sticker there. It's a little off-centered, but I didn't dare to peel it up. And then another piece of this gorgeous plaid pattern paper. Lining it up with the lines on my craft mat just to make sure it's straight. Then I can cut off the excess, and that completes this card. For my next 2 cards, I'm pulling things from all of the different collections, whatever tickles my fancy. These are kind of like wild cards. And of course, I have to use this beautiful dotted pattern paper. And I stamped my image of the frog right onto this, and I'm going to use some polychromos pencils to color him in and make him pop off of this pattern paper. Stamping on pattern paper can be a lot of fun because you do see the cute little dots still on this frog. I'm putting down several layers. This pattern paper wasn't necessarily created for coloring on, but it still works out. This pattern paper has a matte finish to it. I couldn't have done this technique with the shiny paper, of course. That paper is just much too slick and wouldn't accept the pigment from your colored pencils. I'm using a piece of the navy cardstock, and this is going to matte my green paper. And I'm just gluing everything down with a dot liner. And then next is the band of paper across my card, and then my little image. I was pretty much considering my card done at this point. I forgot to put a little bit of ground beneath my frog, so I come in with some more colored pencils. I stamped out the sentiment next to my frog on the green cardstock, but it misstamped, and so it looked really blurry. So I had to come up with a fix for this card. So I added a couple of strips of paper over it to fix it. Nobody will know that there's a sentiment beneath the yellow sentiment strip. But it turned out just fine. I think it turned out even better than I was planning it to. And then I decided to put another little dragonfly up at the top of this card. It just needed something more. So I'm coloring it in using the same colors that you see on the card. And then I need to fussy cut this little dragonfly out and attach him with some multi-medium glue at the top of the card. Added a few of the green sequins around him. And on the inside, a few of the leftover strips of cardstock. On my last card, I'm using the last sketch. I'm measuring out the piece of paper that slants across the front of this card design. Then I'm just going to use my scissors to cut this out. I'm using this piece of pink cardstock as the mat behind this pattern paper. I'm just measuring that out. So it's a little bit wider than my pattern paper. And now I can put this card together, and there was a lot of different papers that went into the making of this card. I'm just going to put my card base down flat, and I'm first going to add some plaid paper to the edges. And then I can cut off the excess at the bottom. Next is my pink matte cardstock. I'm just trying to get that perfectly aligned in the center of this card. And now for the pattern paper. For my sentiment panel, I'm going to crop the corners of that to soften it. And I'm going to use this cute sticker that says Friends Forever. I'm going to take the stick off of the sides of this paper. And then I'm going to use some more foam squares behind it. Now I can take off the release paper and adhere that to the front of my card. And I really love how bright and happy this one turned out. I also used more stickers on the inside and another piece of that cute pattern paper. So that finishes off my 10 cards. I had so many supplies left over that I'm going to have to go back and make some more. This was such a fun card kit to play with. Thank you again, Teresa, for inviting me to be a guest designer. And pick up your Flavor of the Month card kit before they sell out. I'm sure this one's going to sell out fast. Check out the Scrapping for Less blog for more crafty inspiration. I will have still shots of all of my cards over at my blog. Thank you, my crafty friends, for watching today. And thank you for thumbs upping my video and for all your lovely comments. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.